Hey, what's up, everybody? And I want to welcome you all to the first ever Fernando's Improv Blog podcast episode with my really good friend. Well, I just met him a few months ago, but he's a really cool dude, Ricardo Feliciano. Now, Ricardo, he's a really cool dude from just working with him on his wonderful show, eBay Power Selling. That I've been on a few times. It's a great show. You should all watch it. And we're supposed to be on an improv team together, but I couldn't make it happen because of my schedule. But anyways, I want to welcome the wonderful Ricardo Feliciano. Hey, what's up, Ricardo? How's it going?
It's going great, Fernando. Thanks for asking me to do this. This is very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, man, welcome. I keep thinking we're supposed to be on that improv team. You know what's funny? I like, I was hesitant about doing the audition
Yeah.
because I was a shitty teammate on my last team, Snack City. I was, and they were great people, but I was a shitty teammate because I was like
Yeah.
practices and shit like that. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this again. So I auditioned because I was like, all right, the team has to audition. I'm gonna go do my best to support the team. But I made it on, and then like I just told them, I told Neil and Rich, I think I was like, hey, just put me in a team of POC, and that's what they did with your team. I forget the name. And
Yeah.
Tiffany Alamán was on it. I mean, Tiffany, a really good friend. But I couldn't do it because irony of all ironies, my POC team that I have to pack to make as well, Moonshot, they met on the same day as we did shows. And I don't know. I felt really bad, but I was like, I have to learn to just not promise things I can't deliver.
No, for sure. It's totally a balance, especially when you're doing some kind of house team system and you're essentially volunteering your time. It's for your performance, but you are obligated to a bunch of people. So it's not like a light thing you can just uh, commit to. So that's cool that you were able to recognize that. It sounds like you learned from experience.
Were you were you like how was it auditioning for was that your first house team? Was it like your
So
by then?
it, it
How was the
wasn't
experience for you?
it wasn't my first house team, and my experience was kind of a little bit similar to yours in that maybe a couple months before the audition, I had stopped doing anything, uh, and I wasn't going to audition, and I kind of had resigned myself to not thinking about improv and not doing any improv, and you know, uh, I went into the audition, and it was sort of there was no stakes for me because I figured, you know what, if I don't get on a team, I'll just keep doing what I've been doing the last couple months, and it'll be fine as far as my regular life goes. And so then when I did get on a team, it sort of was a new chapter, kind of, I feel, of my improv journey. And so this little snapshot of sort of, I was in a place where I wasn't going to do improv anymore. So,
Well, how come? I think we've all been there, and I feel like that's a fucking classic movie trope of like, I'm
yeah.
done. It's over with. I'm not doing it anymore. Why were you done? Like, what was the reason that you're like, I'm not doing this anymore? Was it just like a sabbatical, like it's a small break, or were you really
Well,
thinking about walking away?
I had been doing it for like 10 years in Los Angeles, ever since I was in my early 20s. And it had always been something I did. And I've had like peaks and valleys through all those 10 years. And it eventually got to a place where I wanted to know what it would be like to not have it be just the thing I do. If I was going to do it, I would want it to be a deliberate thing where I was really excited about a new place or a new team. And I had, I, my most recent new team that I had been on kind of fizzled out and it didn't really give me what I was looking for. And so, like in a movie, I kind of walked away from it. And, I had the instinct that this would happen if I walked away, but it really did a great job of kind of clarifying what it is I'm interested in doing, and what my ideal scenario would be. Performing live and being on an ensemble. It really helped me to to not take for granted a lot of things, and then to also have a reset to be able to come back fresh. Like you said, you felt like you were a bad teammate on your previous team. I had years of those kinds of experiences where you carry if you never have a break, you carry all of the baggage, and you carry all of the failure or resentment or just like disappointments, if you're not where you want to be. And I think it's important to sort of like take a break and just like shed it all, so that when you return, it's just you and you're excited and you're ready to do some cool stuff.
I think you're right, man. I think there is a lot of baggage. I think that's the thing people don't talk about, being on like an improv veteran journeyman. I don't know what the term is. There's a side note. There's a great podcast called Improv Journeyman that's defunct now.
Yeah.
So maybe journeyman is the thing, or I don't know. Maybe just like improv warrior. I don't know. But like, you've been doing improv for a long time, and you're right. There is a time that if you're going out for nonstop, all the wins, all the losses, they kind of accumulate in the soil that is your improv style or improv identity. And you kind of just need to like let some things go, including the wins. You can't live on your wins for too long. So I feel you. So what would you do during that break? How did you like, cleanse yourself, I guess?
So I was just focused on everything else. So I had been newly married at that time. So I was spending the time I would have spent in audition or in rehearsals and driving out to theaters for shows. I was at home, or having quality time with my family. I was also, at the same time, I was starting to go back to some interests I had before improv, which was graphic design and creating my own stuff. So I was doing sort of like designing, enamel pins and kind of other hobbyish stuff that I had always wanted to do, but was never my main focus. So I was staying creative, and I feel like I was, having quality time. So when I heard that the pack was having an audition again, I was like, you know what, I'm enjoying my life right now. Let me audition and see what happens. And the audition was great. I actually, some of the most fun I've ever had was the rehearsal group I was in before the audition.
Who was in your rehearsal group?
John Fago was in that group.
I know John's a nice guy.
Yeah, and he ended up being on like sort of the sister cousin team on the same night as my team after the auditions. And then Colin Longstaff, who ended up being on my team.
I think I know
in that
Colin.
group. I'm trying to think of anyone else that. I think those may have been the only people in my rehearsal group that ended up getting on teams.
So that break, and I think this is something a lot of improvisers do, but we just don't talk about, or sketch comedians too, because I have to include them as well, because I feel we're like twins. I don't know. That's a whole other thing. But I feel like a lot of comedians in general, they always have other art forms that feed them as well. Maybe not in the way comedy does, but they're so important. Like, I know for me, I didn't do improv for 6 months because I was in Brazil doing study abroad and just trying to live as a writer. So I discovered blogging, and I was like, oh shit, I'm a blogger now. But I feel that you're right. That break allowed me to discover this part of myself that I had neglected, but which that also fed me as an artist, cumulatively. How was it for you creating all that stuff? Do you feel it like fed you spiritually as well, or as an artist? What do you think?
Yeah, I like being creative. I think everything I do kind of needs to have a creative angle to it, especially in school. Like I wasn't the best student, but if I could find some kind of humor or creative layer to whatever project I was working on, that was sort of my way in. So my mind is always looking for ways to create something out of thin air or take something and tweak it and improve it. So I do enjoy being creative. And so whether I'm on a team or whether I'm like taking a break, usually I am inclined towards the kind of creativity I'm inclined towards is stuff like I really like coming up with like customizing the experience of things. So a big thing for me would be, like the identity of a team I'm on. I'm always really involved in creating like logos and.
You were the one who created the really cool new logos, right? There was one that looked like an MTV one. I remember.
Yeah, we did like a parody of MTV's classic logo.
Everyone
And
loved
that,
that logo, though. That was a great logo.
yeah, I love stuff like that. I like, yeah, there's all the improv stuff. You take classes and they teach you how to do improv and all this stuff. But I've always been really, really into how do you go beyond that and give someone, and myself also as a performer, a little bit more of a special experience. So like, what's playing in the theater when you walk in? What kind of music are you playing? What kind of graphics are on screen? I feel like that kind of stuff can blur the line of what's on stage, so that it's not just like, oh, I'm watching people on stage, but it's like I know, even though this is not literally happening, you can be transported just enough where you can sort of forget that you're sitting in a black box theater watching people mime things on stage. So I've always enjoyed that part of being on a team, and then I've always reveled in that outside of teams. So like doing packaging design for music releases, stuff like that. I'm that's sort of like beyond the normal improv stuff. That's the thing that I think is a skill or strength that I bring to an ensemble, and I love seeing when other teams do it great too.
I
So that's
was
sort of my
before the quarantine hit. I had to become a showrunner, a new showrunner for Catsby, which is an amazing clown idiot show that was in the second and fourth Sundays of the month at the clubhouse, ran by Chad Damiani and company. And Chad once gave me a great piece of advice. He was like, a show isn't just putting acts up, it's a theme. It's adding color and texture. It's like, you'd be surprised how much you can get out of hanging a rug on a wall. It's about making the
yeah
audience feel like they're in a different place in a different time and transporting them out of the mundane, because like I was thinking about this the other day, and because in sketch comedy, people fucking go nuts with the props they create
yeah
and the money they drop. And I'm not the only one. I'm sure I've dropped like $200 at least on a fucking prop that I used once. But it was such a joke, but it's also such to taking the audience out of the mundane, out of the like, I'm gonna check my phone. No, you're right. There's all these little things you can do to have the audience just be transported. And I really dig that you're aware of that. I think sometimes in improv and sketch teams, there's people who are very much like, let's just fucking do it. Who gives a fuck? Let's just fucking do it. And I'm one of those people to a large extent, but also like, no, we should consider about the other textures that we can manipulate and control to our favor. Like, what if we did hang up this thing? What if we did add music? What if we did like, I don't know, put up balloons or something? So I understand where you're coming from. It's all like a cumulative effect.
Yeah, I think you need all kinds of personalities on your team. You need people that are very practical and just want to get things done. You need people who will go off on their own and invest their own time into contemplating things a little bit more and coming up with elaborate thematic ideas and stuff. But if you have just one or the other, you end up having a show where it's just people in sweatpants standing on stage, kind of not like I'm not a super energetic person, but I know if you had a team of 5 people like with my energy level just wearing regular clothes, that's not going to be as dynamic. But then if you have people that come out and they're wearing crazy costumes and the stage is all decked out, but once the scenes start, they're not doing good solid scene work. Both of those sound like shows that are missed opportunities. So it's nice to have that balance. So I know when I go too far, and I appreciate when people are like, let's stop talking about what this is going to be called. Let's just let's rehearse it.
Oh man, I totally dig that. You know what? That's right. I have seen shows where people have gone out. That's like, man, I got this fucking amazing concept for a show, and they go all out, but the improv is
Yeah,
you're right. There does have to be, but there have been shows too where the improv is really good. It's really amazing, and there's not any frills around it. Maybe that one's better than this other one here. But that doesn't mean we can't like find a balance between production design and actual improv.
For sure. Yeah. That's, I think, what makes the show really special. In the times when I've watched an improv show and been like, oh my God, this is what I want to do with my life. It was like the first one I ever saw was the long form show at the Groundlings. And they don't have like elaborate costumes, but they have really high production values. There's like lights up, lights down. There's like deliberate music played before the shows. It's very professionally ran. So it puts you in a place where you're just like ready to receive these people on stage doing their thing. And then I've seen I really like musical improv shows, even though I don't sing and I can't do them. Just like seeing people move and dance and see everyone link arms and start kicking legs. And it's just, it adds a little bit more so that I feel like the audience is put in this new place where they can really take in what's going on stage.
Dude, I dig that you're very focused on the entire show. I think that's really cool. I think we could all use more of that. I think not a critique on improv, maybe on improvisers, but I think sometimes improvisers can be lazy and it's like, oh, we got the show, let's do it.
Well,
and they will market it, they will make it special. And they'll get pissed off if nobody comes.
Yeah, the buy-in for improv is really low. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. It costs a lot of money to take classes, so there is a huge financial buy-in. Once you've taken those classes, or if you're on a stage where they don't require classes, and you can audition and just show up, from then on, there's not much buy-in. You don't have to even go to rehearsals. Sometimes you just show up. You could have been like in a shouting match with your elderly parents on the street like 2 minutes before your show, and it's not like you have to like take time to like be like, okay, I'm about to do, like, you can just walk on stage no matter what's been going on in your life the moments before. You could have just like been running from work and had like the worst rush hour traffic of your life. Or you could have just like me rolled out of bed 15 minutes before if you live down the street from the theater. So I feel like it's a great art form for people who, I think it's attractive to people who like that flexibility. So the good thing about that is like you can do a great show without extensive preparation. But the downside is you can end up having bad habits outside of just rolling in, where it's like poor communication with your teammates, forgetting that you're putting on a performance for strangers who oftentimes are paying. They may not have that same low stakes, low level commitment. They're there to see like a pretty fun show. So
Man, everything you're speaking gospel to the choir, man. I know what you mean exactly. Sometimes we forget that there's other things that matter as well. We just forget about them because I think there comes a time where, you know what? There has to be a spectrum between like, yeah, I'm on a fucking team. Hell yeah, it's my number one thing. All right, this team is okay. All right, I'm doing all right. I can miss that practice. Who gives a fuck about the show? I'm just jaded. Yeah. Let's go smoke after the show and talk shit.
Yeah, it's tough. It's hard. Like a lot of this stuff, it's like many things in life. We have ideals of how we want things to go, and it's not always going to go that way. So even in the best circumstances, things may not gel for a team, or you may be on a great team and no one shows up. There's always some struggle to overcome in the context of like trying to like launch and produce a really good show.
Yeah, man. I'm thinking about a lot the improv I want to do in the future, because one thing that I have to work on is just figuring out how long a project, has. Like every project has a lifespan, I think, or some of them the lifespan could be forever, or like your actual life. Yeah. Some of them could just be a show. There's this jazz drummer I'm sorry. Like, I forget. I don't know. I can't remember the word it is. Have you seen that? Have you seen that movie, That Thing You Do?
Yes, yes.
Okay, there's a scene where like the fucking pianist comes in towards the end and he plays drums with him, right? And they play drums, and they're playing drums and like they're having a good time. And he tells them, sorry, this is afterwards. He's like, "What happened to your band?" It's the jazz pianist. He's like, "Man, we broke up. We had one hit song and that was it." And the guy's like, sometimes that's as much as time as you're gonna get with someone. He's like, every band has a lifespan. You just don't know it, but when it's over, it feels right. So sometimes
Yeah.
I think people don't want things to end, but sometimes they have to end if it's not serving anyone anymore or it's causing resentment or anything like that. And that's the reason I did not want to join the improv team that we're both placed on, because I don't want anyone to resent me for not being a good teammate. So tell me, let's go back to that
Yeah.
audition. So you're like, I'm ready to come back. You auditioned. How was the actual audition experience? How was it for you? It was a packed house night.
It
It was a
was great.
too.
That audition that the Pack Theater put on, it was a great house. It was all fellow performers, and I think maybe outside people could come and watch if there was space in the theater, but I don't know if there was. But it was our ensemble who we knew we were auditioning together, so we had been rehearsing with each other for a while, for maybe 5 or 6 weeks, and we had put
Jesus Christ,
together
are you
sort of,
serious? 5 or 6 weeks?
yeah. I went,
You guys
yeah.
wanted it.
We had like a form that we were doing. It wasn't like a super complicated one, but we were doing like, we're going to do a show together and we're going to perform as if we were a team. So we went out and I thought we crushed the show. And I thought everyone on my team crushed. And I remember after the show emailing with people being like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just made this a team. I wouldn't be surprised if like every person that auditioned was like either on the same team or split across the new teams they're creating. Uh, and the crowds were super receptive. It was probably one of the like hottest shows as far as like every move you make, there's people reacting, and it feels like you're like, oh, I think I know how to do improv today. This is
You
fun.
know, I will say about the Pack Theater, performing in different spaces, because I feel like the Pack it's very compact. You're in there, and I was telling Richie this the other day. I was telling you the other day, actually, yeah. It's like when you're killing in there, man, it's amazing. It's like when you're at Angel Stadium or I don't know, whatever baseball field, and like there's times when you hear a crack of a bat and that's a home run. Everyone knows it, because you always hear a
Yeah.
crack of a bat, but there's a specific crack of a bat where you're like, oh, that's gonna be a home run. You just know it. And then the past times you'd like have those moments where you're like, fuck, that joke just really landed, even though maybe it wasn't meant as a joke. It was just a thing you said that was honest to your character you're playing at that time. So
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
you're
it's great. Like you said, it doesn't have to be something funny. It just has to be something kind of like surprising or that matches what the audience was like. That's what I was thinking. Like, I thought that guy would say that, or I thought that character would do that, and you did it, and it was funny. Oh, like, and everyone just like erupts as a whole, as one unit, when everyone's excited and laughing. It's great. Yeah. So the audition went really well, and my experience with the audition team went really well. So that kind of reignited my spark in uh, wanting to be part of a team, and everything that entails.
How was it being on a house team again after taking a break, or how was it like? How is it being like, all right, fuck, I have to be serious. I have to be serious about this again, because it's like you're entering a new relationship, right? You want to start it on a good foot. How was it just being on the team again?
I loved it. It was great. Yeah, we got really lucky. Everyone on our team, everyone got along. Uh, we were paired with another new team on our night on Tuesday nights that they were all happy to be there, and we had a lot of really good nights where even if the audience wasn't huge, we could watch each other's shows and enjoy each other's shows, and we could like hang out after. So when I look back on that like year of being on that team and doing live shows, it's a positive experience for me, and I've met really close friends from that.
Dude,
Uh,
that's great, man. Like, that's cool that your teams had each other's backs. You know that you. I didn't say each other's backs, that you were friends. You know, I think that term, I like it, but sometimes it implies that somebody is against you. We're here. No, you guys were just literally building a new night. You guys literally were building a new Tuesday night. How was it? How was it experience of building a new Tuesday night improv for the pack?
it was great. So first off, pretty immediately, as we're figuring out who's going to be our coach, what's the name of our team, well, all the like first things you have to do. I found myself, being able to help with like the graphic design and sort of the online branding stuff. And through that, I noticed that on our sister / cousin team, Allison Smith, who's another improviser,
Awesome.
she was sort of doing some of that stuff too, and she was coming up with like really cool stuff online. And so we kind of bonded really quickly, and it was nice to in the context of starting a night, it's nice to like you're building your own team, and then you're watching another team be built. And since you're close with each other, you can kind of compare where both teams are as far as that initial, setting everything up. And you're like, okay, we're a little bit ahead of the game because we already have a coach, and they're still looking for a coach. Like you can like, not in a judgmental way, but it's just nice to be like, okay, you want to measure your progress against something. So it's nice to have another new team where you're like, cool, they're doing this really cool. Let's do that. Or
were there a lot of improv veterans on your team, or was there a lot of new people?
I think I would say veterans, because this is probably the average median age for Nuisance, which was the team I was on, was older than I think any other team I'd been on. So I was in my early 30s when this process started, and I think I wasn't like the oldest one, which I feel like I've been on teams before where like everyone's 26, 27, and I was 26 or 27, and then you have like one or two people that are in their 30s or 40s, and you're like, okay, they're the veterans. But I think in this case, like Tiffany Alaman has been doing improv for a long time. Jay Light had been on like two other pack teams before he was on ours.
Yeah, I remember his old pack.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think.
Oh, is that how you met Jay Light?
That's how I met Jay Light. Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's so awesome. Now you guys have an amazing show, which we could talk about in a bit.
Yeah. So building that Tuesday night was great because we had another team that we could work with on things. And I had a kindred spirit on that other team with Allison Smith. And like Jay Light, she's been like a huge collaborator in the time since. And I love doing shows that she creates, and she'll come on the shows that I create, and we can talk on Facebook Messenger about stuff that happens in the community. And it's nice to have that sort of like a kindred team, and then also another kindred improviser that you can experience all this fun and also chaotic stuff together.
I think it's important to have peers who you're not actively working with constantly in your community. What I mean by that is like, you need to have people who aren't on your team that you can just go hang out and talk to. I'm not saying that like you go and vent and talk shit, but just like a peer that just who understands it. I think with any art form, you need those peers who like, you don't need to explain anything. They know what you mean. They know exactly.
Yeah, I find it incredibly helpful because I'm kind of introverted and I tend to overthink things. So whenever something happens or I do a show, it's nice to like check in with someone else and be like, did I get that right? Like, is my understanding of what's happening like let me hear you talk about it. That way I can kind of like help gauge and balance sort of my own interpretation of things,
Get to have a second set of ears to go like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I'm not crazy, but did you see that? And like, yeah, because sometimes you do experience things, but you're like, I don't want to be crazy here or sound like a dick. Let me go corroborate with somebody else first. And like, yeah, that's important. Peers are definitely important. Because sometimes everyone on your improv team or sketch team, you're not going to get along with, and like, you can be like, hey, did you feel that? And they're like, fuck you. All right, never mind.
Yeah, and even if there's not that aggressive example you gave of a actively combatant teammate, but like not everyone is on the same wavelength socially or interpersonally. So I can do shows with people and have great shows or okay shows, and after the show, I may not necessarily be able to like tap them on the shoulder and be like, "Oh, what did you think about this?" Or like, some people, like there's people on teams I've been on that I talk to this day and I have long chats with. There are people who I've been on teams with for years who like I've maybe had 2 conversations with outside of, performing.
That's funny, man. That's funny. A lot of my improv teams these past few years, I've put them together from people I just like playing with. And those are fun because I feel like everyone's friends, or in my experience, my friends will become friends with my other friends. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. That happens. But when you're on a house team, sometimes it's like, I don't know if I like this person, but I have to be professional enough to work with them. And I have to like suppress whatever dislike I have for them. That's just me. I'm just being honest here.
Yeah.
To cross the bridge and be professional. And then there's a dialogue and you can't work together, and maybe your friendship strikes up, or at best, at worst, you quit the team, or you find a balance. You're like, all right, we can work together, but we're not going to be fucking, Facebook messaging at midnight,
Yeah.
And like, that's just the thing you have to accept. I think for a house team, my experience in a house team for sketch versus improv was, I think for sketch, it was like, you're here to refine your professional writing skills to get you in a position to get a comedy writing job. At least for my house improv team at the PAC, it was more like discovering your own style and voice. They're both important goals, but maybe the like sketch side forces you to be more like, all right, I better buckle down and be very professional. I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I agree. I feel like sketch seems to lend itself more towards creating like a product that it can immediately be translated into a career product. So I think it's a lot easier to go on a sketch team and see how like, I'm going to walk out of this with XYZ number amount of sketches, and I can find someone that I'm going to write a pilot with or something. I feel like that kind of, there's sort of like a practical element to that. And then improv by its nature is so fleeting and sort of amorphous that really like you could use being on an improv team for anything, which is great. But it can also, like, if you need structure, like you may not get it from being on an improv team. Like if you need a kick in your pants in your career, I think you could be on an improv team and do great shows and never get that kick in the pants. I feel like if you're in an if you're on a sketch team, you're going to be seeing a lot more people beside you who are like getting it done. And you're going to hear more about SNL auditions and all this stuff. And I think it provides a little bit more structure. But personally, I enjoy the looseness of improv, and I enjoy like you're saying, I feel like every friend you meet, every new person you meet, every show you do, every team you're on, essentially for me, it's showing me something new about myself. How would I react in this situation? What's a new part of myself that I'm learning or activating when I strike up a close friendship with this new person on my team? So I enjoy the sort of philosophical games of, of doing 22 minutes of silly improv once a week,
That you're gonna forget like a year from now, unless you write it down.
Yeah, that's the thing. The scenes you're in, for the most part, you'll forget them. They're gone. Like they existed for that moment of time. The stuff that I feel like stays are the friendships you have with the people on your team, and then also the lessons you learn. You're like, oh shit, I can't be an asshole. Like, oh wait, no, I can be an asshole because I was an asshole in that scenario. Now I know not to do that again.
I like that. It's like, no, I do have the capacity to be a monster or whatever. And like, I look back at younger Fernando, I was like, man, I feel bad for all the people that met that dude, because that just wasn't the best me, but that's who I was at that time. So I know what you mean by there. It does reveal parts of ourselves that we're like, oh fuck, I don't know I had this in me. Like, that's terrible, or I didn't know I could do that. That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. The if you're interested in it, improv can teach you a lot about yourself, and it doesn't have to be in like a weird in place of therapy way. Like if you need therapy, like go to therapy. But if you're doing therapy and you're working on yourself, but you're also like a creative person and you want to know you want to go as deep into the well of your soul as you and figure out like who you are. I think improv gives you a lot of situations and scenarios and opportunities to test yourself in kind of a pretty safe way.
Well, I'll say this about being a comedian in general, because I do a lot of sketch comedy now and do a little improv. I feel like I'm at the nexus of both, because I feel like not everyone who does sketch wants to do improv. Nobody does improv wants to do sketch, and there's like people in the middle who do both. But I don't know if maybe you're better at one than the other. But the reason I bring that up is just because I feel like doing comedy in general, you're forced to think about, why is this funny to me? Why does this make me laugh? Where does that source coming from? Or in improv, it's like, because in sketch, you're like, why is this funny? But improv, it's like, you just like to think, well, why? Why was that thing so funny to you? What did that person do? And like, it does force you to self-assess who you are a lot. Like, you are forced to like question, like, why am I enjoying this? If you're a practitioner, if you're some just random, like, non-improviser, non-comedian fan, oh man, that was fucking hilarious. Like, how did you do that? Not realizing that there's a whole science or philosophy, methodology, training behind it, where your instincts are sharpened and directed and pointed towards a certain potential outcome. But part of that training is also getting to know yourself. Is that kind of what you're saying as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think people who are really sharp on stage, they usually have a good sense of their self. Maybe not as a person, but as a performer. And I feel like we kind of talked about this in a conversation off of this one, which is sometimes I'll see a show and they're some of my favorite performers. I go in and I'm sort of expecting them to do a couple of the things that I know they're really good at. And they know that that's their voice. So you can see this person's show and you know at some point in the show they're going to do this thing that they're really good at. And one thing I've felt like as I get older is I want to not think of you doing the thing you're good at as sort of like cheating in improv or a negative thing. I think when I was younger and when I was in classes, there was a lot of energy put towards the idea of everything always has to be like different, and you want to stretch yourself so that you can do 9 million things, different things. And as I'm getting older, I'm like, maybe instead of doing 9 million things, like do the 5 things that like resonate with you and match with your voice. And I'm sure this is the subtext every time a teacher gives that note. But as a young performer, I genuinely thought that it was like the ideal performer would like never do the same stuff ever. Like you would always be completely different. You would have to like play 19 different emotions in a show in order to be like a great performer. So, and I think that can have the adverse effect of stifling your voice and finding a voice.
I think you should broadcast that message more, man. I think that's an important message. I think people think that they should like, you're right, be able to do a million things, but it's like, no, you should just do the thing that you're good at. And not that it's limiting, but that's true who you are. And it's not like man getting hit in the man getting hit by a football on the groin. That's not what you're saying. Like, that's a classic Simpsons bit where
Yeah.
the moment it gets hit in the football in the groin, everyone laughs, and then they do like a heightening version of George C. Scott, and it's funnier. But I think what you're saying is like everyone has this kind of like POV almost or aesthetic that they have, and that it's executed through how they do certain improv things. That we know they're going to have a big reaction when you do this. We know that they're going to straight man every situation. We know they're going to do a certain thing, and like instead of like trying to like see that as a weakness, see it as a strength of what you're like, what you can contribute to an improv scene or your improv team. Yeah, because not everybody, you know, you can't be everything to everybody. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because in music we wouldn't like expect the band to be, oh man, here comes the Scorpions with another metal album. So that's original. You know?
Yeah, like it's nice to have some variation, and it's nice when the moment calls for it to, you know, bust out a slow ballad in the middle of a heavy metal set, you know. But like you said, if someone's playing a polka song and then they're playing a country song and then they're playing death metal, that might work for like one band that's known that their crazy thing is like they have no genre and they're just confusing everyone. But as a guide for helping find your voice, I think at a certain point you need to be encouraged by your coaches or directors to stick with what they perceive as you sort of finding a really nice groove to build off of, rather than like, okay, I know you're good at this. Now I'm going to force you to never do that again as long as I'm your coach. You know, like, I'm like, no, you should like, that's more in a classroom setting. I'll say that I don't want to say like that's a coach trope, but this idea, like sometimes if a young kid is in your class and you're a teacher, they may not know they're doing this thing really good. Like,
You know
don't
what
take
though?
for granted that like there's some hot shot that thinks that that's the coolest thing. So you're going to like prevent them from ever doing that ever again in class. And you're going to make them grow. You might be like putting your hand down and pushing down like the beginning of them finding like their voice.
Man, I'm loving everything you're saying. I just read Steve Martin's book, or I just heard it on audiobooks, and he's a big influence on me. And he did this act for years and years and years, and he figured out what his voice was, but he hit a wall with this act where he's like, oh shit, I'm aware that I'm doing all these other things, but this one thing I keep doing, I'm not aware of, and it's holding me back. I'm going to stop doing that and just do more of these other things. And like, I think you're right. I think if you're going to be a comedian, you do have to be aware of what your strengths are or what your type of humor is, and just heightening that and building that and strengthening that, as opposed to being, oh man, I got a weakness for puns. Because in short form, it's a thing too. You can't do lineup games, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it's cool if you want to be well-rounded. Like, all right, I want to do characters, I want to do emotions, I want to do a straight man. I want to know how to tag and heighten. Like, those are all important skills, don't get me wrong. And some of them are kind of like essential skills. But you wouldn't expect in basketball, you wouldn't expect a center to be able to be like a power forward who like is able to like, I don't know. Never mind. I don't know basketball. You wouldn't expect him to be like a point guard to like, you know, bring down the ball from like the other side of the court and like, you know, figure out who to pass it to. Because that's not his job. His job is to be the center and just be right there under the basket, blogging it or like trying to get fucking points in. You know, like we all have different positions on an improv team or improv skills. It's just being aware of that. Like, are you like that whole, what is it? Pirate, robot, ninja? Is that what it is? Yeah. Like, I think it's a cool philosophy that gets people to think, all right, I don't have to be all these things. And I don't know, like, you know, there's not such thing as a perfect improviser. It's more just like, who are people you want to work with? Who are people that you don't want to work with?
Yeah, I think in a vacuum, you want to be dynamic and you want to be able to do everything. And if you're auditioning for something and you don't know what they're looking for, I think there could be that feeling that like, well, I want to show them everything that I can possibly do, you know, because I don't know what they're looking for their teams or for this show. So I'm just going to like do 9 different things and hopefully one of them they'll like. But I feel like when you're actually on a team or you know what your role is, just do that really good, you know. you know, like to your use, I probably know the same amount about basketball as you, but if someone's a defensive specialist and they're supposed to defend so that the other players can, you know, get their shot in. Maybe 3 times a game, you may have an opportunity to shoot a basket, but if you stop playing defense because you want to like grab the ball and show that you're a great scorer, like you're not doing yourself or your team favors. So my thing though with this is, I think if I could go back in time to my younger self or mentor or younger improvisers who aren't already inclined like this, I would say like take notes and take instruction and take classes, but also leave a little bit of room for yourself to be your own coach, even from an early place in your development, and leave yourself some room to be able to disagree with a note you get, not in like a self-defensive way, but allow yourself to say like, okay, this teacher wants me to only work on space work, but I feel inclined to, you know, build, you know, my gameplay, like playing the game. Like give yourself permission to say, I'm going to focus on the gameplay. I think if you're spreading yourself trying to like take every note you get, I think you end up not building any one thing, and you just end up like okay at a lot of different things.
I feel you mean. I feel what you mean, because I think when you're a beginner, there's this impulse to please your teacher or your coach, you know. But sometimes you might not have the best coach, but you might not know any better.
Yeah.
And sometimes multiple notes can be contradictory to each other. So I should be doing this and this, but they kind of cancel each other out, depending on what it is, you know. Or like I just naturally don't feel like I want to do that, or I can do that. And like, I don't know, you know, maybe even you're a beginner, maybe it's for the intent of making you a more well-rounded improviser, but you should also have that instinct, or at least have that, hey, you know what, I understand the note kind of, but I don't like it. I'm just gonna, you know, put it to the side. You know, like I really dig what you're saying there, because you do have to know who you are.
I think if you're a people pleaser and you like to not ruffle any feathers, if that's your kind of personality, then I would give the advice I gave. But if you're a jerk and you think you're like great and you've never done improv or done comedy, like you should listen to what your coach is saying and shut off the part of your brain that's telling you to be an idiot. So like I give that caveat, because there are people who should, you know, err on the side of doing everything that they're being asked of in the class.
We've all seen that level 1 hot dog who's like, I'm the funny guy in my group, so I think I got this taken care of. Yeah. And you're like, well, yeah, maybe sometimes you're like, really, you're the funny one? Fuck, well, your group must not be funny. Or it's a thing where it's like, oh, I see where you're coming from, but you just need to be like channeled a bit. But no, you're right. The improvisers come in all shapes and sizes. We've been talking for a while, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, how about this? Before we close, just tell me a little bit about your show, eBay Power Selling 101, which I love, by the way, and I know it's a great show. I think, you know, let's just call it out. We're living in quarantine. We're living in time of COVID-19, and it's going to be a while before people go back on stage, you know, and I feel that they're figuring out what to do. You know, they want to do improv, but they can't do it the way they did. So like right now on Instagram, I saw Chad Damiani again, him and some other clowns. I think Jet Elevif and Dean something, I forget his name, real nice guy. They're going to do a clown show out in the park. So they're going to do a clowning show. They're going to wear masks. They're going to social distance. I know there's stand-up shows in like parking lots or parks where there's distance between the audience and the performers, and like, because, you know, people are adapting. You know, they're adapting right now. And one way people are adapting is through doing stuff on Twitch and YouTube Live. So like, you know, what was the impulse behind the show?
So I kind of just jumped into this opportunity we had at the theater where they were starting a Twitch channel and they wanted pitches for weekly shows. And I feel like at this point in my life, I have a pretty good internal gauge of whether to just jump in. And I got a little bit of a twinkle of this could be fun. So I was like, I'll pitch something. So I pitched this idea I had done when I was like 21, a live show I did about this dude who was obsessed with selling things on eBay. That was his entire identity. It was like he was an eBay power seller. And I was like, you know what? Now I'm 32 and I'm not a young child.
Back in the day?
What's that?
Were you an eBay seller back in the day?
Yeah, I've been an eBay seller, like off and on. Like I used to sell books and CDs when I used to have a bunch of CDs and stuff. And now I sell like a bunch of records because I collect. Usually, whatever I collect too much of, I end up selling back a lot of it. So I've been on eBay for years and years. So I kind of had the knowledge there. But now I was like, that might be an idea worth revisiting now that I'm an adult man and I'm not a 20-year-old pretending to be an adult man who sells on eBay. So I was like,
if I understand this correctly, your show in your 20s was like The Road Warrior.
Yeah.
It was Mad Max. Now this show is your Road Warrior. I guess
this is my Road Warrior. Huh? This is like a huge tone shift and a lot more world building going on. But anyways, the version that we have now that it's grown into, it's basically a public access learning annex seminar. And myself, I play a character named Michael DeWitt, and my friend Jay Light plays my teacher's assistant, Tom Parrott. And we're just two like well-meaning, but slightly obtuse guys who are inviting students onto our show, and we're there to help them sell their items. So we have a bunch of great comedians who come play guests. You've played a guest, Fernando, guest student, and you've been on the show, so you know this, but 95% of the show has nothing to do with eBay, and it has a lot more to do with like whatever weird broken life these characters have. We just exploring and improvising these character studies almost.
Your show has it reminds me of like one of those like classic 1 hour like sci-fi shows like Twilight Zone or Star Trek.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone in the sense that like it's always like absurd and like out there and exploring, bigger questions, but Star Trek in that it's like there's a consistent, maybe Star Trek The New Generation, there's like a consistent through line, I guess, where like you are building a universe. Maybe every episode doesn't build on it too much, but there's episodes like, oh fuck, we just did this identity transformation, we just traveled back in time and now we're in a reset, but did we get the right Michael DeWitt, and like,
yeah,
that's a really cool element. I think it feels like a more important show. I'm not saying it is an important show. It feels more important because there is that narrative that's running through every episode, even if you just touch upon it. But I don't know. I haven't seen too many besides the ones I've been in and some other films. But there's that narrative that's in through every episode.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Even though we probably haven't earned it, we've kept like great continuity as far as like character details. I don't know if anyone else picks up on it other than my co-host and I, but essentially the show in a nutshell is if there was a public access like Antiques Roadshow where you zoom in, but it also takes place in Twin Peaks or the Twilight Zone. So
I think that's cool, man. People dig continuity, man. People really dig it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed doing it. I've almost enjoyed doing it more than live performing because I get to know a new format to me, sort of this interviewing across the screen. We can do stuff with like backgrounds, music. We've had different actors play my character that I am for a whole episode. We're trying to figure out like what are the weird things you can do here that you can't necessarily do on stage, and let's just try and do as much of that as we can while this show exists. And it's confusing at times, but it's also like a fun fever dream. So if you're into Twin Peaks, Twilight Zone, public access kind of silliness, definitely check it out. It's on the PAX Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/PAC Theater. And then you can like connect with our show specifically on Instagram and Twitter at Power Selling 101 with the numbers 101.
That's cool, man. I'll drop all that information too, man. That's great. Well, Ricardo, I love that show. It's been great talking to you today. Thanks for your time. What is your last improv lesson or insight that you want to share with the world? You've shared so many amazing ones today, but what's one that you just want people to be like, damn?
So my damn improv advice that I would give people is to just be true to yourself on stage. And as long as yourself isn't awful, you can be true to yourself, and you won't run the risk, I think, of either making the wrong move comedically or the wrong move that goes against your own, moral code. So I think that's been very important to me. Is we're people on stage communicating who we are to each other through comedy. So the closer you can be to who you are as your guiding sort of as your guiding light on stage, then you can be as funny in a way that you find funny, and then you can also say the things that you think are important without worrying about saying things on stage that go against your personal morals and ethics.
Dig it. Ricardo, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, everyone, go watch eBay Power Selling 101. This was the first episode of Fernando's Improv Blog Podcast. That's the name. All right. I'll see you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye. Oh, hold on. Bye. Where do I pause the recording? Stop.